Welcome back to another video, everybody. Today we will be showing some clips from Vivek Ramaswamy because he destroyed a couple reporters this week and I just couldn't not share them. So without further ado, let's play the first clip.
You condemn white supremacy and white nationalism?
I mean, what this kind? Who are you with? Which Washington Post. All right, so potato. Okay. Of course, I condemn any form of vicious racial discrimination in this country. But I think that the presumption of your question is fundamentally based on a falsehood that really is the main form of racial discrimination we see in this country today. Institutionalized racism is institutionalized racial discrimination that we see that doesn't come from somehow discriminating against people on the basis of some tenet of white supremacy. It's based on affirmative action. It's based on actually discriminating against people on the color of their skin in a way that's actually institutionalized today. Was there a point in our history, at points in our prior national history, where there have been vicious forms of anti-black or anti-brown discrimination throughout this country after the Civil War and otherwise? Yes. But you're looking in the rearview mirror and using that to pose a question today that is so far removed from what the reality is in America today. This myth of white supremacy, the closest you can find is Jussie Smollett, where you all were actually, speaking of trust in the media, jumping up and down over some false narrative. The best way you're able to find your best instance of white supremacy was a guy who was actually paying his other fellow people to be actually staging something that didn't happen. And so stop picking on this farce of some figment that exists at some infinitesimally small fringe of the American public today to open our eyes to the actual real threats that we face. And I think that it's frankly questions and framings like that that has caused the American public to lose all trust in the mainstream media, I'm sorry to say, for good reason.
You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy, though.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours.
The appropriate response is indeed, what the heck are you even saying? Like, this is not something that this is not like the question that a journalist should be going after. And it doesn't make sense because it's not based in reality. White supremacy is not a problem in America. There's small fringe groups. But if you actually want to talk about what is hurting Black Americans, for instance, talk about what is actually hurting them, like black on black crime, like single motherhood, things like that. The appropriate response is never to actually answer the question when the question is literally ludicrous. Instead, you should do what Vivek Ramaswamy did and hold the media accountable. I thought it was fantastic.
Let's talk about what white supremacy and what happened last night for a moment, because when you were talking to reporters last night, you called white supremacy a myth. When someone asked you about Dylan Roof, you said you didn't know who that is. Have you looked up what happened in 2015?
Yeah, look, I said this last night. Invidious racial discrimination is wrong no matter how it happens. But if a Washington Post reporter is asking me almost like a catechism, whatever question I said, I'm against invidious racial discrimination, whatever form it takes, but says, do you denounce white supremacy? It's incumbent on us for us to define what white supremacy is. I wrote my book, Woke Inc., and I've written about the detailed understanding of what the popular understanding of these terms have come to mean. Do you believe punctuality is a vestige of white supremacy, Dasha?
Look,
because if you don't, then you have a disagreement about many of the people who are defining those terms, or the written word, or the use, or the nuclear family. These aren't my words. These are the words of intellectual proponents from Ibram Kendi to the Ayanna Presleys to BLM that have said these are vestiges of white supremacy. So
Mr.
we can't have it both ways.
What you do, though.
We have to have an honest
you
discussion.
Straw man arguments.
This is not a straw man.
You brought up Jussie Smollett as the best example
Smollett
of white
was the hottest thing in news in the back of a fake actual attack on him that we have to contend with.
And yet you have examples like the Buffalo shooter in New York just in 2022.
You have other examples.
But you are also cherry picking when you bring up Jussie Smollett.
I'll look at all of the statistics. More black on black crime. If we really care about actual crime against Black Americans, let's get to the root causes of it in the inner cities of this country.
Okay, so this interview was actually in response to, I think, the day before when the Washington Post reporter asked him the question. And again, Vivek is like, why am I even talking about this? Like, this is not a thing. And again, it get to the root of what they're saying. If you actually believe in white supremacy, as the other intellectuals, academic intellectuals that are purporting that this is happening, then, as he said, being punctual is technically white supremacy. Like Joe Biden said it perfectly when he literally said, you're a white kid or a poor kid. Again, it comes back to the bigotry of soft expectations which the left has, and Vivek Ramaswamy pointed that out perfectly. Really quick, guys, I do want to talk a little bit more about Vivek Ramaswamy and what's going on with the polls, especially in Iowa, as the caucus is just in a few days. But really quick, before I do that, I do want to talk about the sponsors of this podcast. The first one is Gulag America. Now I'm partnered with Gulag America because they're a patriotic clothing brand, something I believe in. If you go check out their website, gulagamerica.com, I'll put it up on the screen as well. They have fantastic patriotic clothing, both for the warm and the cold months. So I know it's cold right now. Go check out their hoodies, their long sleeves. They got some really fantastic stuff for all people, men and women, as well as they make fantastic gifts. If you use my code JoshCar10, you will get 10% off. So again, that's at gulagamerica.com. Use my code JoshCar10 for 10% off.
Hello everybody, as you can see I am not in the studio right now, I am in my garage, where I want to share with you how my wife and I keep our stuff organized going into the new year. We use smart labels, an easier way of storing those Christmas decorations and lights so we don't lose them again next year. First, you just slap a label on your bin, download the free Smart Labels app, create your first smart label, add the items you have in your bin or box, and later search for your stuff when you need it without having to climb over boxes. The best part, the first year is free. So go get your smart labels now at Amazon or Walmart.com.
So really quick to end this video, guys, I did want to talk about the Iowa caucus and what I think is going to happen specifically with Vivek Ramaswamy, because there's been a lot of polls coming out that are saying that he's sitting around 5 to 8%, not very high, especially when you consider that Donald Trump is sitting at about 50 to 60%. And there's also been speculation that if he doesn't win the Iowa caucus, that he will drop out. And I don't think that is true. I'll just go out and say that right now. But my prediction is that I think that the polling is probably off. I think that when push comes to shove, most people will still vote for Trump. And really quick, before you guys are like, no, but Vivek Ramaswamy is so awesome. I hear you. I personally really like Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he stands for a lot of things that Trump stood for, except for I think he would be a lot better at cutting through the bureaucracy than Trump was. I also think him being young and spry is a huge advantage over Trump. And I think a lot of Americans feel this way, especially the voters that like Trump. But at the end of the day, when the voters sit down and they look at the ballot and the caucus, like the delegates, because that's who chooses in Iowa, when they look at it and they really think to themselves, who am I voting for? I think it's going to come down to Trump, because I think the sentiment, especially since Vivek Ramaswamy is such a new name, is that, wow, I really liked what that guy said. That was really cool. But Donald Trump was in office for 4 years, and I trust what he has to say. I also think there's an element to it where you look at Donald Trump and the Democrats are literally copying fascist dictator, tactics, barring Donald Trump from elections. And you look at that and it makes you want to fight for him. I'm not even like a massive Donald Trump fan, but seeing the way Democrats are trying to call for how like democracy is dying while at the same time trying to take out their opposition, Donald Trump, it makes me want to vote for Donald Trump, not even because I love him that much, but just to screw it to Democrats, because screw them for trying to bar people from the ballot while simultaneously lying to you and saying that they care about democracy. And so for that reason, I think the Iowa caucus, Donald Trump is going to win with flying colors. I do think we're going to see a bounce, up in the polls from like Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis. I don't think Nikki Haley is as popular as people say. But unfortunately, I think it's too little too late for both Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. But watching these clips and seeing him wreck reporters is enjoyable nonetheless. And hopefully he continues in politics despite not being voted as the Republican nominee, which at this point, I assume he's not. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate your support, as well as if you disagree, comment down below. I want to hear what you have to say. I promise I'll start a dialogue with you, and we'll shake things up a little bit. See you next time.